welcome back to Recorder on the Wall, where we're covering every Redwall product, and apparently there's a lot more of them to come. I'm your host, Pete.
I'm your other host, Jeremy.
I'm your other host, Katie.
I'm the excited Redwall fanboy squealing over the Netflix news, Matthias.
Oh, come on, man. I wasn't going to introduce that yet. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. And with us for the first time on the show is another member of the Redwall forums, Daniel.
Hello, good to be here, finally.
Yeah, we've had
Good to
some
have you.
cross-communication trying to get you on. And that's mostly been my fault. I apologize. So, as we ask everybody when you first come on, your favorite book and or favorite character?
For favorite book, I think I'm gonna have to go with Mossflower. It's the one that stuck with me for the longest, and I reread it not too long ago, and it really holds up so well as a story. And it's got very memorable characters, and it just gives me a good feeling.
Even if Martin's a dirty, dirty liar about his past.
We all have our flaws.
Right?
Interior, but we won't go there. And for character, I think I'm gonna have to go with Gonth from the same
excellent
book.
choice.
Good choice.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about that.
He was nothing like Eufus Lightpaw.
And although there's not terribly much to say that hasn't already been said, and because Matthias already spoiled this,
oh, boo-hoo.
I know. Yes, if you're listening to this, we're recording this on February 21st, and this will probably go live in about 3 weeks. But yeah, by that time, the news should already be well apparent. Yes, Netflix has bought the rights to the entire Redwall series. And the only thing we know for certain is that A, they're making a singular movie based on the original book, and B, that Martin the Warrior, the book, will be getting a miniseries. Now, how well those do or how will those come out, we don't know. We don't know who's voice acting it yet, or we don't know what the animation style is yet. All we got was kind of a generic concept art, which showed Matthias in the Great Hall.
I'm looking forward to more information on this because I will definitely be watching this. I'm not excited about it yet, simply because there's no information really to get excited about for me personally.
Oh, I'm excited.
It means after we're done with all the books, we're going to have to come back and cover it on this show.
So we will be covering the original Redwall story for the 5th time then?
Nice.
What do you mean, 6th time? Yeah, 7th time. That's quite a lot.
That's the charm.
Yeah.
I did recommend to Netflix on using our Twitter that they hire Jason Mulhern to play Clooney, and he agreed with me. So
nice.
There is one interesting thing to note, that the movie version of Redwall is being written by Patrick McHale, the guy behind Over the Garden Wall, which is an absolutely brilliant short series from Cartoon Network. It's currently on HBO Max, I think.
Well, then I'm going to have to watch it.
It's really good. Very much plays into the old-timey style of media. Not so much in the animation, somewhat in the animation, but a lot in the music. They got like professional operatic singers to do songs and stuff. It's really cool.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay.
Yep.
Unless anybody else want to react further to that, or are we good to go to get to the book?
Yeah, a quick note. I wonder, I've not actually seen the show, but I wonder if, given its Cartoon Network, if that gives an indication of the sort of tone that the movie and TV shows might take on, whether it would be a little bit more on the, I guess, child fantasy side and a bit less of the heavy stuff that Redwall sometimes covers.
I mean, that's a really good question, because Cartoon Network in itself can be very hit or miss with the kind of stuff they make. Whereas channels like Nickelodeon have gotten very good at the epic child drama, Avatar: Last Airbender, for example.
But then they also beat SpongeBob to death like a dead horse.
Indeed. And thankfully, Fairly Odd Parents has finally died. Yes. There is what it is. It's honestly, I'm hopeful because admittedly, a showrunner can be really make or break a series. If we're going to use the Cartoon Network example, like Craig McCracken ran the original run of Powerpuff Girls, and he was asked to return for the remake and politely refused. And it shows. Lordy, does it show. And now Cartoon Network in their infinite wisdom says we're going to get a live action of the girls in their teenage years having been bitter about being superheroes. So, let's get to Redwall.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the last show I watched on Cartoon Network that was not on Adult Swim, I think, was Justice League Unlimited. And that was like 2006. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, Justice League Unlimited is like one of the best superhero TV shows I've ever seen in my life. So
Yeah, I went out on a high note.
Oh, that just leads us to the next book in chain here, Hide the Rain. And, this book starts, how can I put this gently? Metal. Because we literally begin with body horror. And no, this isn't the one that everyone's been warning me is coming.
Yeah, this is tame.
Oh boy.
So we begin on the actual book begins not even with a map of Mossflower, but a map of a green isle. So yeah, we got another bad guy on an island. I wonder if he will go insane.
Gabul and Ublaz are sitting there like, rip off. We did it first.
yes, but it's gone into public domain now. He can do it as much as he wants.
Copyright expired.
So our actual division title is The Forgotten Tome, which we don't even find out about until the very end of this section.
My response to that was, it's Redwall though. They forget everything except Martin's triumph over Sarmina and his sword. Also, Sarmina's name was lost to time.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because, and I'm going to bring this up anyway as we go through this, but we find out Redwall has finally gotten its act together and built a library.
Yes.
Yay! As somebody who works in a library, yay!
How many books are
dust
we at?
everywhere, Dad.
18?
Yeah.
And I love at the opening of book one, you just see this picture of a mouse sitting on a pile of giant books. And it's just like, I don't know why, but that imagery makes me very, very happy.
Yep. So our story begins proper. We have basically a hawk. Last story that began with a bird. Isn't that Sunflash and Scarlath?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, but instead of finding a badger to free and help him out, this hawk's been trapped in a net, and he's got a star-shaped iron barb that's trapped in his mouth. Ow.
Yes.
Yep.
And 2 young feral cats. And what's the difference between feral cat and wild cat?
Things. You know what? I'm gonna go with this. Wildcats are less annoying. Just gonna
Can you hear what we see with these 2 feral cats start acting like shortly? Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we're introduced to our big bads for the book.
And yeah, we're back to Wildcats.
Rigu Phyllis or Felis.
Rigu Felis. Yep.
All right, and we've got a pine marten, a tunra, a tunra.
They kind of alternate in the audiobook as to how they pronounce it, so you can say that however you want.
Alrighty.
Amra, the ever-living. Got it.
There we go. I did think Atunra sounded like an Egyptian name, honestly. And so my immediate thought was like, ooh, do we have a new head of Vermin HR?
Perhaps.
Old man Ashlake has finally kicked the bucket.
Yep. And then we also are introduced to Rigu's 2 kids, Jifra and Pichu.
Yep.
And at this
they had
point,
a 3rd brother, they'd be the 3 Stooges.
yeah, at this point, it was just like, my spell checker is going bonkers.
They're such a delight. They're such delightful children.
We are going to get to everyone's all the weird names in this, but we have reached the point in franchise where the name of the bells at Redwall are no longer normal
Yeah.
compared to everything else.
Well, we just
God.
said that Redwallers forget everything, but clearly Matthias and Methuselah stuck by.
This is true. Yeah, they
It's
didn't forget
kind
the
of
names
like-
of the bells yet.
It's kind of like that thing where if you say the same word over and over again within a short period of time, the word sounds like it no longer has any meaning. So it's just like Matthias, Methuselah, Matthias, Methuselah, Matthias, Methuselah, Matthias, Methuselah. And then eventually it's just like, wait, I'm just saying sounds. That doesn't make any sense to me.
So, our big bad is watching his idiot sons try to kill a hawk who's already trapped behind a net, and he's still dangerous. Let's be honest. And basically, he gets impatient. He's like, "I'm gonna do it myself." And oh God, why is everything hurting?
Yeah, we are introduced to our big bad. Like, so with Clooney, we were introduced to this horrifying, like, psychopath who laughed at the death of one of his own. Sarmina, this conniving monster. Here we get a reckless moron who got half his face ripped off. Good job.
Yeah. Pro tip, tossing your weapon away is a sure sign something bad is about to happen.
Unless you're a badger.
Well,
No,
Rhaegar.
You can argue
Right.
that's still a bad thing for the
But-
vermin,
I
so...
think the only badger who came out of that on top was Brocktree. So,
Yep. Hug.
so anyway, yeah, Rigu's been knocked senseless because half of his face has been ripped off.
Yep. Woohoo!
So, assuming they can stop the bleeding,
Spoiler, they do.
he's going to die from infection. No, he's dead.
God, I wish.
But yes, the two sons are told, run and get help, and they stall.
Yeah.
Like-
Prepare for that to be a big theme of this book. Lots and lots of stalling and bickering.
And
Yeah.
our Pine Martin's literally go, get help. I mean, you could argue some bystander effect where they'll assume the other's doing it, and he's like, no, go.
Yeah. And suddenly Redwall.
Yep.
And so many characters are introduced.
Yep.
So many
I
characters.
actually stopped keeping track of my normal OCD character list because I was just like, nope,
Yep.
I can't do this.
I keep losing track of characters. I keep forgetting characters' names. I keep forgetting who is what. Like, I don't even know what half the creatures are.
The species cannot keep track of who is what species.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Although-
go ahead.
I do really like, before we move on to Redwall, the line that we leave our injured half-faced despot. Atunra says, now Riku Felis will be able to slay his enemies with just a look, methinks. That is hilarious and dark and gruesome, and I love it.
I wish Rigu would have just grabbed him and been like, that's not funny.
Yeah.
So
We see Redwall is actually again showing sense. They have an abyss. I mean, we're some distance from Marlfox and Tagaron, but
Yeah.
the fact that they have an active one is a good thing.
Yep.
Right. And how do we pronounce this one?
Lycian.
Lycian. Abyss Lycian. And take note of this character because she has some extremes in her personality.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. We know for a fact that she likes tea, which we'll be reminded of about 18,000 times in this section of the book.
Yes. And she's very young. I don't think she's quite Tansy or Song age when they took over, but I think it's definitely the youngest Abbey leader we've had for a majority of the book and not just crowned at the end of the book.
I would
Yeah.
say mid to late 30s. Yeah.
And we get introduced to her mole friend Burby. And you know what? I think Burby is a cute name. I am fine with this.
And it also helps Molmum Burby is probably the most wholesome person in this entire book.
Yes.
Yeah, I do like her.
And our abbess greets us with a song first thing. So
You know what?
I did count. I don't know if it's accurate because I started to lose. But
Yeah.
between prologue and the poems, I include poems in this. There's roughly 9 or 10.
Jesus.
Well.
You know what? I will also say
That's standard at this point.
Continue my positivity for this part. I may have been bagging on the number of songs in these books, but even I like this song. I thought it was cute.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
yes.
I mean, we're only halfway through chapter 1, and there's a half-page song. Pete, put the hammer down. Your Kindle does not deserve that.
I don't have a hammer up yet.
Yeah. And so now we get the deluge of wacky names. So first off, Grud Long Tunnel. I'm cool with that. I think Long Tunnel is a cool last name for a mole.
These are formal.
Yep. And then we get Banjon Wildlow, which
Wildlock.
I don't care.
I knew you wouldn't.
We then get Grop, Taggle, Grumby, Urgle, and Rolg.
All Divins for the record.
Oh, Urgle and Rolg sounds like the sound I make when I get something caught in my throat. Okay? When I'm choking on food, I go, Urgle and Rolg!
Whoever names Dibbins don't really plan for the future because they sound like baby names and not full-grown adult names.
I mean, that could be the case here, but at least with the vermin, they can say, they chose those names to a degree, or their mothers hated them. So,
In the case of Jifra, I'm going to go with his mother hated him.
Now his mother
I
loves
like
him.
Jifra, though.
Unfortunately. And then we get introduced to our main protagonist, Tyria, which, okay, that name's fine. I also like Tyria as a character. But she also has a sling that she's named Wuppet, so even the weapons have stupid names now.
oh, come
Well, I
on.
mean,
That's
is
like
it-
naming a sword Rat Death.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it any worse than Rat Death? Which is a lame name compared to just the Sword of Martin the Warrior.
I'm gonna go with after that abbot died, Matthias was like, okay, hands up, who actually wants to name this sword Rat Death? And like everyone has kept their paws under their seats, and he's like, okay, we will never speak of this again.
Sword of Martin. Cool. All right.
Yep. We're all agreed now.
So, Skipper and our Cellar Hog break Gracefolk. That's fine. And Skipper is named as well. Instead of just Skipper, he has a full name, Banjon Wildlow, and his daughter is the one Jeremy mentioned, Tyria. And so yes, they basically the demons in, and it's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, we need someone to go out and get some fresh wood, actual quality wood, because we want to build a fence to protect our crops from a windbreak.
Yeah,
Fair.
there was a storm the previous night, and like with many Redwall novels, this one having a storm right near the beginning, like before we get there, just as we get there, or just after we get there. And it's like, this is becoming a thing. And it looks like this storm definitely pulled up this season's crop of strawberry trees. An absolute shame.
And yep, so Skipper decides to let Tyria and her group of friends, whose names I don't remember off the top of my head because whatever, says like, you guys can go out and do it. Like he says to her, I trust you. You reach that point where I feel like you're able to go out of the Abbey and do this on your own. And I liked her characterization here, where like she has that initial excitement, which we've seen in a lot of the younger Redwallers before, but she also has that acknowledgement of like responsibility and freedom that she and her friends are getting for the first time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, and then I'm sure these guys aren't going to run into any trouble. When young ones go out in the forest to do a chore, when have they ever run into any trouble? Right, Teensy?
Right,
Yep.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Every
Woodcutters.
Redwaller ever.
Well,
So-
they need to leave a trail of candy chestnuts to get home, only to discover a naughty demon followed them and ate the whole trail, leading to our heroes discovering an old vixen's cottage made entirely out of nut bread, preserved fruit, and scones, get invited inside only to discover that she's a descendant of Gulo's band and therefore a cannibal, but dispose of her in her own giant oven before returning to the Abbey with a wealth of sweet treats.
You put way too much thought into that.
Wow.
My goodness.
And no, folks, the podcast did not just speed up. Matthias actually was able to say that all very clearly, very fast.
Well, now you're just tempting me to artificially increase the speed of his audio.
Don't do it.
Do not turn me into the micro machines, man.
Don't ruin it. Well, on an unrelated note, we get a new moron band led by the great Groff Gut.
Groff good. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if they would get along with Bad Red or if they would just annoy each other.
Oh my god. And we know that his band are stupid because one, they follow Groff Gut, but two, none of them can speak properly. So like the very first one is, "I got a fish. Gee golly, ma, we got some dumb vermin out here. Yuck, yuck."
I didn't picture them with like a Southern American accent. That's interesting.
It almost sounded Cajun in Louisiana, and I'm sorry to any of our Louisiana listeners.
Oh, I'm just offending people everywhere with my terrible accent. So why stop now?
Okay, entirely topical, but we're preparing my library's branch to reopen to the public. I was putting some books away, looking for some stuff that was missing, and found in our folktales section a Cajun retelling of a popular fairy tale. I am not even joking.
Well,
Bless.
we then get close to copyright infringement here because we have Plug Tail, and I'm just like, Plug Firetail's not going to be happy about this.
Oh, he was a better character too.
Absolutely. And then this was one of those moments where I'll see something, write a note, and then immediately afterwards go, "Oh, okay." So I saw Rashback, and so my initial response was named after his horrible skin lesions. And then I looked at, and then I read the next line, so named because of an unsightly mange.
Yep. There you go.
Well, you're not wrong.
Yep. And I was just like, I was kidding. Ew.
Did that one need to be explained as well?
God, it did not. No.
No, apparently vermin don't have their own version of HIPAA, so.
Nope.
Yep.
Their
There's
version
no
of
HR
HIPAA
department.
is literally just here. Slap some bank mud and some dock leaves on whatever your wound is.
Sleep it off. You'll be okay.
So
Yeah,
yes, I wonder if our wood gathering group will find the vermin to have mysteriously captured an eagle with a net around it.
Does Groff got stupid in the woods?
So yes, obviously this is where it's gonna go. Yes, our friends, they find some wood, but then of course they find the vermin, and they're like, oh, that they've got the bird strung up down from a bow, and they're torturing it to death by putting a fire below it.
But before we
Oh.
get there,
Oh.
there's a moment when they're skimming stones, and this really stood out to me because there's obviously a lot of debate about whether Tyrio is like a Mary Sue type character, and I don't want to add too much fuel to that fire, but there's a very weird detail where it says Tyrio was by far the best skimmer. And to me, that's just completely unnecessary. It's just like, we get it. She's perfect. Like, does she have to be the best at skimming stones? Like,
I mean, she is an otter, so
Yeah.
that, water stuff.
That was my thought too. Is like, it just kind of makes sense that the otter is kind of like the natural best at that.
okay, yeah, I take that back. That's right.
It's curious that people debate if she's a Mary Sue or not. I'm gonna have to keep that in mind as we go forward.
It is a big debate. Like I
It's
mean,
a
I have
big
my
debate.
I have my own thoughts on it as we go through, but no, I definitely see where people are coming from but at the same time, Matthias learned to use Martin's sword very quickly and became very good at it very quickly. So,
Well, not only that, but he's the literal reincarnation of Martin. So
Yeah.
that's a little Mary Sue-ish there.
Yeah. So like, I get it is like she's kind of quote unquote, chosen one, for the book, but also it's like we get a lot of chosen ones in here, like as you said, Matthias, who is literally the new Martin. So it's like I don't know. I'm willing to overlook that sort of thing with her. And she's also, I don't see her as like perfect, because later on we
But
find
that's
out
one of
she
character
doesn't
flaws.
she didn't realize that throwing a rock as hard as she could into the back of some guy's head was going to kill him.
We'll cover that one.
Yeah.
Syria, that kills people.
So yes, apparently our gang of 8 rats are like, huh, food. We found a bird. So
Yep.
they're gonna cook it. But before they can do, yes, our youngins are on atop them, and they pretty much beat up the rats.
And Brinty has gotten his taste for vengeance and blood.
Yeah, we'll cover him in a minute. But the rats, the rats would, if they were smart, they'd be like, huh, a bunch of woodlanders just collectively hinted us our backsides. Are we never going to mention this again? Yeah, let's never mention this again.
Yeah. Pete, that's a big if they were
I know.
smart. That is the biggest if in the history of ifs.
Yeah, qualifying statement there is, vermin are not known for having much smartitude.
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 It's interestingly, there's some accidental world building in this one as well. One of the Gruffgut points out Tyria and says, "Kill that river dog," so implying that there are in fact dogs in Redwall, which we haven't heard about since the first book. Redwall is
it's not the first time we've heard the suffix dog applied
Yeah,
to
like
either
striped dog.
species. Yep.
that's true. That's true.
It's just
I mean,
very odd. I agree with you that it's odd though, because like,
Yeah.
so
Where
what
did
exactly?
this original suffix originate from?
Yeah, is it
I
like
mean-
an insult?
It's not like canines are an unknown quality here. Foxes are
They do have
blazed,
foxes.
Yeah.
blazed throughout the entire series, and then Ergen being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm the fox wolf. No, honey, you just found a cloak.
I am the Foxwolf.
I still think it's
XXX Foxwolf XXX.
Right.
I still think his original name was something really stupid like Francis. And
Okay, Deadpool.
well, yeah, that's where I got the idea from.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, like I said, we got Brinty, where I like this little bit with him, where he's a Redwall mouse, and he's like one of the Redwallers, and we don't normally see one of them snap like this, like where he just starts going to town, almost beating Grofgut to death. Like we see this once or twice, like we'll see, rage from other characters, like Badgers, absolutely, Otters, and sometimes we'll see it in the Warriors, like Martin II in Pearls of Lutra, where he wanted to leap over the battlements and beat up everybody and get
Martin won with the freaking God tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but oh yeah, that's true. But we never see one of the peaceful Redwall mice do something like this. And then
My notes immediately, I was just like, and if the Red Wars had any sense, like, okay, we are sending you to Salamandastron. They need to, if you're going to be that big violent, we'll at least get you military trained.
They're gonna say we're sending you to therapy.
Well, that too.
Yeah, but then right afterwards, he's completely shaken from it. Like, I don't know what came over me. Like, I can't believe I did that. So I like that. I thought that was a nice little bit.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
just
I can
got
tell
so
you what
angry
happened.
because they were torturing the bird, and he's like, ah, and then he just,
Pretty smash! Pretty
Yeah.
angry!
Yep.
Madder Brinty get, stronger Brinty become.
Guys, he's turning green!
Puny water rat. Oh, so
But yes, as I said, our vermin, they lick their wounds, and like I said, smart vermin would be like, hey, were you never going to mention this again? Nope. And they would have been on their way. But of course, Grofgut can't take this lying down, so he commits his group of 8 to vengeance.
And then they bring the bird back to Redwall, and the very first thing Skipper says is, "That a dead bird you brought in?"
Yeah.
Guys, we asked you for some wood. What is this?
Well,
As I
you
check.
wouldn't believe us if we told you.
We also get apparently the gatehouse is actually being used as a house because the gatekeepers are a married couple with kids.
Yeah.
A pair of harvest mice, and it's just adorable.
Yes, I love how again the wife is the sensible one and the husband's like the panicky one.
Hold that thought.
What do we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
Because we're about to meet another husband and wife pair shortly, and it's obvious has the common sense.
And so then they take the bird in and they remove the weird spiky thing from it. And Tyria is like, I'm going to keep this for later. Chekhov's sling stone.
Yeah.
Now, see, I mean, I know that it's probably that's probably what it'll be do with, but my mind ran to throwing star.
I think this is supposed to be more like, think like a caltrop, but with more points to it, and some like cruel barbs and stuff. Because
yeah, but mine is cooler.
We could debate about that later off air.
So humble about it. You're so Abbott humble about it too.
Oh dear.
I never said I was humble.
Do you like listening to Humble Pie as well?
Moving
So
on.
yeah, chapter 3.
Chapter 3 shows us a wood fortress that is not reminiscent. It's actually reminiscent of Marshank, frankly, at least by artwork anyway. But basically, it's Green Isle. It's an old, proud timber forest that once began to the wild otter clan.
I'm sure that won't be important.
But inhabited by untold seasons by cats. And my first instinct when I was reading this, it's just another cat clan, like 3 or 4 members. No. We'll quickly learn that this is a pretty substantial garrison of cats.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Now,
I remember when I first read this, I was like, oh, an entire army of cats. So it's like all of them are the size of like Sarmina or wow, I'm blanking on his name.
Ungatron?
Ungatron, thank you. So I was like, man, this is going to change the dynamic. It does not really change a whole lot from the usual stuff. Like,
No.
I'm sorry.
So we do get introduced to Rigu has a wife.
Yep.
Lady Kaltag.
Meet the family.
Lady Kaltag.
Meet the Felices.
At first, I really don't know how to place this character.
She's annoying.
Yes. But at my first instinct that she was actually politically savvy, that she was more of a Sylvanward, only a little bit quieter to her husband. But if anything, by the time this is over, it's more that she's a doting mother, and that's her first and foremost duty.
Yeah.
It's clearly a political marriage, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. At this point, Bluefen's in the afterlife like, aren't you glad I didn't talk sometimes? At least I wasn't annoying.
But we're back to our Wildcat sons, and they're squabbling like children.
I think Nancy has something to say.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, I was just making an offhanded joke that I got some Addams Family vibes from the two, but like actually.
I mean, based on how one of the sons acts later, I could see a Wednesday Addams vibe, frankly.
Yes, well.
Oh yeah.
So Rigu.
Before we get too much further, I want to kind of take us from this kind of casual haha moment to take us down a moment for something kind of serious.
All right, before you begin,
okay.
I know where you're about to go. So, folks, we have this book. Well, slavery is not a new subject when it comes to the Red Wolf franchise. Matthias asked if he could talk about what he's going to take about, and I said yes. Now, what's about to hear is going to be dim and friendly, but I will caution parents, if you are listening to this with your kids, we're about to touch on some pretty heavy and dark subjects. So, parental listening is advised. Matthias, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah. Here we have with this fortress, Rigu Felis, his army, and his enslaved workforce. And we get some rather uncomfortable subjects that we could talk about here, about subjugation, enslavement of an entire species by another, and in this case, cats enslaving otters. So in light of recent events occurring within the US over the past year, and the fact that we are recording this in February, I want to take a brief moment to talk about this subject in a little bit more detail. Now, we try to stay away from politics on this show, so I'm not going to get too super deep into this. I'm sure if we really wanted to, we could record an entire like 2.5 hour show just talking about this subject. This is not the time or the place to do that, but I think there's some very important things that need to be pointed out. Brian put a lot of words into these villains' mouths that portray racism in a very stark manner. Though I'm sure he wrote a lot of this from the perspective of somebody deeply affected by World War II and the Holocaust of the Jewish people, many of those same themes of oppression are, in my opinion, even more applicable to the US's enslavement of black people over the past several hundred years and with the turn of the civil rights movement over 50 years ago. We see the cats using slurs against the otters, mistrusting them at every turn and using their families as leverage to force them to submit to the oppressive rule of Rhulian. The language is very uncomfortable and in your face. I didn't see this when I first read this book over 15 years ago. And in fact, I haven't read this book in over 10 years, leading to me forgetting a good chunk of this. And now that I see it, and it's just, I want to point this out and use this as a talking point, especially considering how do I want to put this, polarized a lot of the US and, in fact, the world has been over the past year over the events of George Floyd and any countless number of other names that have popped up in the news.
I can say it's not just an American thing. As an Australian, it's been all news here.
Oh, yeah. So this needs to be talked about, and it's antithetical to the spirit of Redwall to mistreat somebody out of hand. And yes, Brian kept a very distinct delineation between good guys and bad guys, woodlanders versus vermin. And I know some people would want to point out and say, oh, that's speciesist, that's racist, whatever. We have many examples of woodlanders offering mercy as a first choice. A perfect example is in the original Redwall, when Abbot Mortimer offers food and medicine to Clooney and his horde. So despite what other people may say, I don't think Brian's portrayals of vermin as always being evil is either necessarily bad or racist. I think he's showing an issue that he might not have experienced personally, but wanted to portray even if it wasn't perfect. We see him showing racism as bad, resistance to oppression is good, and, spoiler alert, the good guy's winning. Real life is a bit more nuanced than that, but I think this is a good starting point that doesn't need to begin with the 24-hour news cycle, just dumping a lot of really heavy subject matter and stuff that it's just, yes, we heard you the first time. Read the book, decide for yourselves. Parents, engage with your kids in some positive discussion on this topic. Kids, try and talk with your parents about this too. And if you aren't satisfied with the answer, go try talking to another adult you trust and ask them. Because the only way we're going to stop racism is to not allow it to continue. Now, please take my soapbox before I get my second wind.
I mean,
Well said.
that, yep.
All right. That being said, yes, it's not uncommon in this franchise to see a villain who's, of course, has slaves. Frank, most of them do. So, and considering Batarang still remains from the best slave guy who had slaves around, that's saying something. Now, we don't get the complete malnutrition that we do get with Queen Palpatine, all the way back in Marl Fox. Yes, I know that's not her name. But these slaves, they basically, Rigu's big thing to keep his slaves in line is that if you step out of line, he's going to, threaten and or kill your families, which is arguably a pretty powerful motivator. But we'll see how that goes for him.
I think it's a little bit unrealistic that we didn't see any otters betray other otters just for the sake of their families. I don't know if Jake's wanted to go that dark. But like, if this plan had succeeded, I don't know, like, do you care enough about the cause to sacrifice your children?
One of the other alternative options is that maybe had they had more time before they got rescued, we would have seen that, because they were under the pier for not that long considering.
Yeah.
But they just got rescued before any of them could betray.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
So
spoiler.
yes, we're back to our Rigu and his useless sons who are fighting. And
So Rigu decides to go for the Darth Vader look, and gets the mask over his face. Ironically, I was listening to the Imperial March song while reading this part. I just expected him coming out and be like, Jufra.
Nope, that's
I
canon
am
now in
your
my head.
father. Unfortunately.
So he's basically, yes, two useless sons who couldn't kill a bird. So, hey, take the guards and kill every bird on my island. Hey, won't that cause ecological problems? Do I look like I care?
Yeah, our big bad, ladies and gentlemen. Does Riku actually do anything through this whole section of the book besides a few things? I don't
Well, it's mostly just abusing underlings.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm assuming he just inherited this island, but he doesn't seem competent enough to take over anything by himself.
I assume it's passed on.
Frankly,
father to son.
Gulo is quote unquote marked as the dumbest of the vermin bad guys, but from what I've seen so far, at least he takes active agency in his plans.
Oh, Gulo is so much better than this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, dumber, yes. Proactive, I would prefer running from Gulo, or I should say, I would rather have to be against Rigu, because at least with Rigu, one, I don't have to worry about my corpse being desecrated, and two, I'm not running for my life screaming like a little girl.
Yeah. Yeah, Gulo was not the brightest in the world, but also he was just flat out terrifying.
Yeah.
And especially at near the end of that book when he had just completely snapped and was just, oh, I overheard this one guard thinking about running away. So I chopped his head off and threw him in the water.
Yep.
So I don't look at Rigu and be like, I don't think he's going to be beheading me in my sleep. So yeah. And so he wants to take his revenge out on all the random birds on the island because sure, why not? Hey, why don't you come out by my neighborhood and kill all the crows?
So yes, he's like, oh, go kill all the birds. And yeah, okay.
Yep, and then we get introduced to some of the otter slaves. We got Walkie, and then they talk about being some creature on the island, which we do not see, which is called the Slothanog.
Yep.
The book is taunting me now. The book has become sentient, and it is now just coming up with stupid names to bug me.
I guarantee you, the Slothanug is worth the reveal. I will say no more.
With a stupid name like that, I sure hope so.
Well, it better be.
Yep.
Because even Gabul is just like, oh, come on.
Yeah, and I noticed one thing, at least in this chapter, there's a lot of like random notes in parentheses. Like we got when they mentioned Dibbins, all of a sudden there's parentheses saying Dibbins with the younger creatures in Redwall. And then here we have like a couple different notes about like geese or the Shellhound because he is vengeance in the night. So just I don't know, it's not like a bad thing. It just I don't know. I get kind of bugged when stories break the fourth wall in that fashion where they just kind of give you a quick definition because for me it kind of takes me out of the story. Like I'd rather them kind of explain it in universe and in a way that works to just progress the story.
I wonder if this was some last minute editing that his publisher made him throw in. Like, you're going to have new people reading this book. Why don't you put something in that explains it? And he's like, oh man, I already finished it. Fine. I'll just throw something in.
Because it does also have an asterisk to tell us how to pronounce Rhulian as well.
Oh, nice.
So we get to meet Letho Shellhound.
I do like him. He's funny.
Yeah.
He'll be our Batman.
Yep. And
Rhulian, how do you know that name?
And then we meet, as I call him, Yoda Goose.
Yes.
And as thankful to you I am. Yes.
That's canon now.
I was thinking the same thing, and I have never actually made it through any of the Star Wars movies, but I was thinking the same thing.
I am thinking you are right.
So we find out that Letho works to help Yoda Goose get free and fly off somewhere, and literally it takes him like no time at all to show up at Redwall, but we'll get to that part.
First
It
time
looks
fast.
Looks like Letho really got their goose.
Eh.
So chapter 4. And chapter 4 starts off where we have this little bit where Skipper mentioned that like otter tradition is that only male otters become skippers. I have a theory about that actually. Because the book, it's High Rhulian, and they mention that Rhulian is the otter queen. What if the males are skippers and the women are like become the otter queens?
Yes, but it seems like in the Mossflower territory, there's only skippers.
This is true.
I don't know. It just seems very like, and I'm not even mad about, because obviously there are traditions that are inherently sexist, even though people don't consciously realize it. But I just think Jake's had to throw this one in to justify Tyria having to travel across the world to become a ruler. And I'm like, I don't know. He's just like, according to the law of otters. I'm like, really? Okay.
This is the way it oughter be.
Right.
And he has the power to change it. He's the skipper. Surely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
You are literally
like
the leader of your group, of your Holt.
It's like that scene in Coming to America where the king was like, "Who am I to change the rules?" And the queen's like, "I thought you were the king."
Yeah. It's like,
isn't that the thing people always complain about in Aladdin, where it's like, oh, the laws of the land say you can't marry a commoner, it has to be a prince, and it's like, you're the king, you're the sultan, change the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give me a pen in 5 minutes, I'll change the rules.
Yeah, it's like, I just like breaking the fourth wall. If he did break the fourth wall and be like, I'm sorry, Tyria, but in order to drive the plot forward and have you take your hero journey, I have to not change this law.
This is like this could be like in one of those pitch meeting videos. Like, but why can't she become the skipper? Because then the book can happen.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, besides that fourth wall meta bit, I mean, we've already established in previous books that moles don't care. They'll happily appoint a female formal, and so will the shrews for their log-a-log.
We did have a female Holt leader though in Legend of Luke, right?
Queen Garraway, yes, but I think that was not in Mossflower territory.
Oh, okay. Maybe
but yeah, she was a queen too. So
yep.
Mossflower's just a bit conservative.
Apparently.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Tyria's mother is dead. I don't know if we mentioned this before. I'm like, was that necessary? Could
We
she
don't
not have had a
find
mother
out.
too?
We don't find this out till a little bit later, but yes.
Oh, okay.
She's reverse Martin.
Yeah.
It's mentioned.
Actually, no way. She is Martin. Yeah, because Martin's mom died
Yeah,
too.
she is Martin.
Martin, when
Yep.
Martin appeared in her dream, he'd have been like, "Hey, we got something in common." So, yep, and we get introduced to our Friar Bibble, which okay, I'm fine with that name, and our friar is a
nice.
shrew. I like
You
that.
know, I expected you, Jeremy, to have a problem with his name.
I did too.
Oh, Bibble,
Yeah.
really? Compared to some of the other ones, this one's not that bad. Okay.
See, I never noticed the weird names like you're talking about until we get Dwink and Bisky in Doomwise,
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
and
I'm
then
sorry.
James Toller.
After Urgle and Rolg, Bibble not that big of a deal. Okay.
I mean, flash forward 20 seasons and we got Friar Urgle.
Flash.
Recorder Ralg.
And his
Friar Urkel.
constantly choking brother, Friar Gurgle.
Oh, no.
Moving along. But yes, it's they're back at Redwall and they're like, hey, this bird is a remarkable creature, and we had to, we'll have to look up what kind of it is because no one knows. All right, okay, that I can believe. Redwallers didn't necessarily know which kind of birds are what, except for sparrows, but they haven't been around for a little while.
Yeah. Why don't they ask him though? Like he can speak, can't he?
Well, wasn't his mouth like kind of sealed shut at first?
Yeah, it was with blood.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean they were taking it out, and then afterwards, like the abbess comes up and starts petting him. So it's like, oh, you're a good creature, aren't you? I'm like, okay, abbess, this is a sentient being here.
Yeah.
Personal space, bro.
Yeah.
But and we're also told that they do eventually figure out what type of bird he is, and this is where I was like, my suspension of disbelief on Redwall at record keeping was stretched to its absolute limit because we have a mention to a abbess we haven't seen since Outcast,
Yep.
Bryony,
I-
and the only
I-
bird she ever met died right in front of her.
Indeed.
Wait, she never met Scarlath. Oh no, wait, did she?
No, she didn't. I don't think.
Okay.
But I guess she had an interest in them because reasons.
I was just like, Brioni became the abbess. That must have been a short list.
No, that was established back at the end of that book.
Yep,
So-
it was.
So it
And
really
we-
was a short list then.
We
Okay.
complained about it at that time.
I can't even. I
Ah.
guess I forgot.
Go back and listen to episode 3, Jeremy.
Suffice to say, I would more readily believe Sister May has experience with healing birds
Mm-hmm.
and would have been a better reference, but that's splitting hairs.
I would.
No, not hares. Mice.
Feathers.
Ugh.
Would have been splitting feathers.
Eh.
But yeah, so then we get to meet and see that we have an Abbey librarian.
Yay!
I could hear Matthias. I could hear Matthias being happy when I was reading this.
I'm sorry if that was that loud. I'm sure I pierced somebody's eardrums somewhere in the region of Kentucky.
I did wonder why all the dogs in the area started barking for no reason at one point. So, yep. And so they actually have a full-on library with shelves and books and parchments all set up. And
Decimal classifications.
Yeah, do they use the Dewey Decimal System?
do they have a Rolodex?
No, I'm sure it's more akin to a hybrid between a timeline and then a categorization system. So similar. Maybe it's closer to what the Library of Congress uses, but not an actual sorting system. More just like hey, we group all these things together. You start at the book with the greenish red spine, and after that, everything is science until you get to the one that's like blue with the black splotches.
I think at least it is alphabetized though, because they're when they're talking about research, you're like, should I start at this letter or this letter? So
I
least it's
mean,
alphabetized.
I thought that was more of a joke. My reading was that they chronologically sorted them, but I don't know.
That makes sense.
And then, so they also finally get to talk to the bird, or they find out that they want to feed the bird, and we get an awesome, hilarious moment with Skipper and Brink, where Skipper's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go fish so we can help the bird, not so we can get drunk and hang out all night."
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that.
Okay, yeah.
Well, for me, it feels like The Incredibles, when Mr. Incredible and Frozone are staking out the police radio broadcasts. They're just hanging out, trying to get like extra hero work, and it's like same vibe here.
Going bowling.
Exactly.
No, for me, for as much as I've been fishing in my life, no, I agree with Jeremy. The Skipper wanted to get drunk and fish all night. Martin has his appearance fees.
Martin has a riddle friend this time, though. Martin's like, "Here, I transported her over here by using my mysterious powers." Now listen to her. So, yeah, we get, as always, our main protagonist is given a riddle in their sleep. They wake up and have completely forgotten about it.
Yep, and it's an otter queen that gives her the riddle.
Yep.
Now, before we go too much further into the next chapter, I want to point out that we skipped over one very small, very relatively unimportant scene, but still something that's pretty great. Down in Cavern Hole, they're relating the events of rescuing the bird, and the story just becomes this ginormous tall tale. So it's
I noticed that too.
8 vermin there were. I wasn't scared. I took all 10 of them on. I fought them with tooth and claw until all 12 were fleeing in terror. There's 14 vermin who won't bother Mossflower ever again.
I personally liked how they said they put up the Chestnut saying, "Okay, these are the rats," and then at one point one of them hits the table. Chestnut flies into Skipper's soup, and he goes, "Look, a rat just landed in my soup."
Yeah.
And Chapter 5 begins with, "The white zone is for immediate unloading and loading passengers only. There is no stopping in the red zone."
Nobody wants to hear your red zone stuff again. So yeah, Tyria wakes up to find her dad and Brink singing some drunken ballad.
Yes.
And
It's a great song too. It's hilarious.
It is.
Oh, I think I skipped it.
You skippered it?
I skippered it.
No.
Yeah. I got a better one coming up.
Of course you do.
So the goose shows up. His name is I must call him
Brenthalis.
Yoda. I don't care.
Okay. But I mean,
Yoda
just for the
Goose.
sake of the readers, his name is Brenthalis, but we can call him Yoda from now on.
Yeah.
Suddenly a goose? Rake in the pond? Okay, no, never mind.
So anyway, the goose shows up and like almost shoulder tackles Tyria off the wall top, so that would have ended the book real quick.
I love how she's just like, good morning.
Yeah. Hi, is this how you greet people? Yes, I slam into them at full speed all the time.
There is no stopping in the red zone.
So she picks up, like, she talks to the goose and asks for people to go get help. And thankfully, she was playing the greatest game of duck, duck, goose because the spear flies right over her head.
Yep, she bows and or curtsies or something. I don't remember what she does, but yeah, the vermin gang is back. Who could have predicted that coming?
Yep.
Well,
So
not
the
the red
moron,
bars, frankly.
the morons are coming. The morons are coming. And so Tyria sees them, and they're like, "Shoot! We threw one spear. Let's run away. Our brilliant plan failed." So Tyria looks back and goes, "All right, I have an idea that will, quote unquote, stop them." She whirls her sling around, launches one of the rocks from it as hard as she possibly could, cracks one of them in the back of the head, and then is shocked that she killed him.
Yeah, I don't think she's ever been in a lot of fights before. Like she did a lot of target practice with the sling and was very good at it, and just didn't realize oh, hey, this can actually kill people. That doesn't feel great.
Hitting people in the head with rocks is bad.
Yes.
Tyria, that kills people.
God.
And
So
also,
She bounces back pretty quickly as well.
say again.
She bounces back pretty quickly. She instantly is just ready to tell everyone about her dream.
Oh, okay. Well,
This is true.
I guess he's dead.
There we go.
Well,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, whoop, that happened.
I do notice that her father is just at first he's almost like proud, like, oh hey, you crossed that bridge. And then when she's obviously having a moral crisis over this, she's just like, he's a vermin and would have killed us.
It's like, he was helping to torture that bird you saved, right?
Now, Skipper, as we're going to see through this entire first section, I mean, there is a spectrum of like Mortimer to Krega of how violent people initially get default with vermin.
Mm-hmm.
Give peace a chance.
This particular skipper is like Krega level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he asks her, why she's having any issues with it, and she's like, well, I guess it's just not a very nice feeling killing somebody. And he's like, not a very nice feeling. And it's like, I get it. It's rough. It's not entirely unjustified. And Grofgut would have certainly killed her if she wasn't bowing politely to Brontalis.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, dude, you sound almost as bad as the cats.
Yeah, maybe he had, since we don't know what happened, maybe like a group of vermin killed his wife. And he's holding a grudge.
We don't know why she's dead.
Yeah.
So
she died of off-screen illness.
Right.
Blue fen syndrome.
Yeah.
Pre-story-itis.
I also think he has a little bit of Rustful syndrome. Like, just is like, hey, this is how I feel, and you're gonna deal with it because I don't know how to deal with emotions very well.
Only good vermin is a dead vermin.
Yeah.
And then, so they go back inside, and we meet is she like the infirmary assistant or just the librarian's assistant? Snowdrop?
librarian.
Okay. I like Snowdrop. I like the name. I think that's a cute name.
Yeah.
And then we meet we find out the bird's name, Pandion Pike Talon.
Yep.
I like Pike Talon. I think that's a cool name for him. And we have them like trying to figure out the riddle, but there's a lot of time spent of them not actually really doing a good job with that and being like, oh, we need to do this. What's the green aisle? Oh, shoot, we should run over here. And they just keep running around. And Tyria's like, we're not getting very far with this, are we? Well, maybe if you slow down instead of just like jumping to conclusions and yelling and everything. Calm down.
Yeah.
Okay, now not Matthias, sorry. Daniel, I know your time is limited here, and you're almost out of it. So, spoilers if you have to, but what do you think of this
Sure.
first section?
Look, so High Rhulian wasn't one of my favorites coming in, but so far it's been better than I remember. There's a few things that irk me a little bit. I guess this is spoiling, but I feel like the riddles are a bit inconsequential so far. They mostly just reveal stuff that the audience already knows.
Yeah.
And so that sort of annoys me a bit. But I like the characters. I really like the story in this one. I guess if I had to give like a rating out of 10, I'd give it about 6.5 or something. Yeah, I think those are my thoughts.
Fair enough.
If anyone has anything to respond to with that.
I mean, we're going to go in greater detail in a few minutes here about the riddles, but I don't disagree. I don't think the riddles give us anything new. So
No.
It is leading up to something that will be revealed in future books, but like future books within this book.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I I know I made a joke about this, and I saw it in Jeremy's notes. He made the same joke. It's like the riddles. It's like the Itagulls were a better riddle than some of the stuff that's here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sister Jaminia was not as smart as people seem to think she was, in my opinion, but you know.
I referred to her
reminds
as
me-
Dollar Store Fairmold.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like Fairmold the Ancient, only less proactive on the here. I'm setting up an ARG for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, also, like Fairmold at least had a reason because she was trying to hide the pearls just in case, like the villain, Ublaz did show up. So it would have made it harder for him to find them as well. So it's like she at least had a good reason for creating those riddles, whereas this new one is just I'm prissy.
I'm just being difficult.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, unfortunately, I must leave. It's been fun.
Okay. Well, we'll try to get you on a future episode.
Yep.
We could always
Yeah,
we could do like one of the normal 3-day weekends here in the States and try to get you in on them. We won't have one of those
Yeah.
for a while, unfortunately, but
Yeah, that'd be nice.
yeah.
All right, see you all.
Yep.
All right, thanks for coming
Thanks
on.
for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we were saying,
Riddles.
Yeah, riddles.
Riddle me this.
In a Redwall book? What?
I do want to mention that now that we have the library's been established, we are also told they're not done with going through every record Redwall has. There's an entire attic, I presume the Warbeak Lofts, that they still have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, I know, Jeremy, you indicated you like Sister Snowdrop. I do too. I deeply relate to her on a vocational level. Just preparing to reopen to the public, as the pandemic slowly widens down. It's like, I got really used to not having people around and just being able to deep clean stuff, pull stuff out, set stuff on tables, whatever. I on the one hand kind of want to go back to normal. On the other hand, it's just like, please give me more Quilt and Snowdrop Solitude book sorting, please. Thank you.
Yeah, kind of makes me think of like when I worked at GameStop, where one day I spent like a good 15 minutes reorganizing all the Game Boy Advance games. Took one step away, and two kids came over and just wrecked the whole thing.
Oh no.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel you there. Only in my case, it's the children's DVDs.
Yeah. So. So yeah.
I love how Snowdrop is like kind of gently mocking Quelt, thinking that he's like not able to hear her, and then all of a sudden he's like, "But I can hear you," and that happens like a couple times.
Yeah.
It's like,
I got to know
Why
what
is it
felt
that
later on, but I liked that bit.
Why is it that Brother Perrant in the infirmary is a bigger stick in the mud than Sister Cicely?
Oh my
Just
god,
saying.
yeah. Like, hey, we need to ask this bird. Granted, to be entirely fair, they don't flat out tell. Well, actually, we haven't really gotten to that part yet. But like, they don't explain to him saying that like, hey, we need to talk to this bird because we're trying to figure out a riddle Martin gave us. I usually feel like whenever they say Martin told us to, everyone's like, oh, okay, let's get to work.
mhm.
Everyone immediately complies with everything.
Martin Ex Machina.
Yes. Yeah. So, chapter 6, we go back to the Green Isle with our terrible, terrible, terrible villains. And we get... one of my problems...
Well, before we get to the villains, we have our otters basically having in a secret meeting, and we also have a bard, and like, no, this is his vocation, and you figure otters who are either staging a guerrilla resistance or are slaves would not put much stock in a person whose sole job is musician, but hey, There you go. And I'm trying to think. Have we had any official bards before this, other if they weren't part of like the Noonvale troupe? And my only thought would be Goff.
That's
Yeah,
what
I
I was
agree.
thinking too. But yeah, no, this is our first, like I think this is like the first time they've even used the word bard as well.
There was also Boorab, but
Mhm.
he was more Redwall musician than bard.
Yeah.
Not quite the same thing.
Mhm.
Besides, he had like one-man band thing that reminded me of Mary Poppins.
We also get some name drops here, some last names that refer back to previous books. We get
Okay, that wasn't just me. Like, wait a minute, what?
No,
Yeah,
I thought
we
this
get-
was super cool.
yes, we get Gale Deep, so Finbar. We
Mhm.
get Wave Dog, which that was Kruva, right?
Kruva. Yep.
Yep, and we get Stream Battle, which was Rab.
Uh-huh.
Like that's really cool. Like I really liked that we got callbacks that these are like descendants from their families.
This is why I get so frustrated with the occasional sloppy continuity, because I know he can do it.
Yeah. And okay, this is like a spoiler, not spoiler. There is a song in book 3. It's an Otter Wars song.
Yes.
It is absolutely epic, and it name drops all of the different otter clans, and it is so good.
Awesome. Yeah, so I really like that they have these names and that they are these like they don't have to bring up Finbar, Kruva, and Rab, but like just by having these last names there, because last names are not always something we see in the series. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. These are from their line. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat.
And since Katie, you haven't said anything about this, the song the bard sings is briefly interrupted by Brian narrating.
It is.
Which is the only time that I am aware of that happens in the audiobooks, where it's like the music stops, but the music keeps going, the narration continues, and then the singing resumes.
Yeah, I think he doesn't often. I think this is maybe the only time he has interrupted a song to do that. And I don't think that there was really any other way he could have done it in the audiobook besides what he did. But they were playing a banjotter, which is like a banjo.
Yep. I wonder if Banjon will be playing that later.
Banjo Wildlock.
Yep.
So yes,
With my banjo on my knee.
Our
Oh,
otters
no.
have their big meeting, and it's basically, hey, are we going to war with the Wildcats? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's get started.
Yep. And Martin is apparently now giving visions to random otters. I think he's cheating on Redwall.
I don't know. We've established this. He has to save up for it with his long distance, but he does make calls outside of Redwall.
Bought a calling card. Yeah. The Zillow the Bard, like in his dream, it went boop boop beep and said, "You have a collect call from Martin the Warrior. Will you accept the charges?"
Who?
Oh, this sounds interesting. Sure.
Either that, or they do it like, what was that one commercial where they said like, "You have a collect call from, hey, how's it going? Would you like to accept the charges?" No, and then they do the collect call back. "I'm doing great. How are you?" And so they say, yes, this mysterious otter queen will arrive to help lead them to victory. And you know what? I bet you Banjon's gonna be a woman by the end of this story. That's my thought.
Question: why do they need to wait for the queen to, free themselves?
Because it's a prophecy.
The myths, the legends, the queen.
Because Martin said so. That's
So-
the bottom line. Because
Don't
Martin
you know you
said
have to
so.
have the main character in order for any attack to work? Otherwise, it's doomed to failure.
Fair enough. So we do get back to our terrible, terrible Wildcats. And how old are these sons? No, really.
I
Too
would guess
old to be,
teenager.
like- Ferdy and Cogs were more mature than these two.
Yeah.
I would have pegged Ferdy and Cogs to be like 8 or 9, and these two idiots to be like 13, maybe 14.
I mean, that could make sense, but man, these brothers fight like they're 5.
Oh my
Yes.
god! And it's like, Daddy's picking on me. Wee!" Ugh.
And even the mother's like, will you two just shut up?
Yeah. I was just like, you know what? You lot could have learned. You could have learned a lot from Sarmina. Just kill or imprison the ones you don't like.
Hold on to that thought.
Yeah.
But yes.
Oh god.
And yeah, he's just like, basically the brothers are fighting, and one steals. Let's see, Jifra steals Petru's egg.
Petru steals Jifra's.
Yes, there you go.
Excuse me. Petru
Just
steals.
more on number 1. Put more on number 2 on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, one brother steals the other brother's egg, and they basically appeal to mom and dad. And dad's just like, "You do something about it, kid. We're not gonna help you here. Oh, and don't order our cooks to give you another."
Yeah.
Slaves.
I mean, I can offer some excellent yolks to scramble your brains, but I promise they aren't poached.
Those puns are better than any dialogue from either of these kids.
I mean, that's true, I guess.
Oh, and Dad Regu says to his wife, "Hey, Petru's got, he looks like he's got the makings of a proper wildcat." And she's like, "We have 2 sons, you jerk."
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, and Jifra is a total wuss bag. What do you want?
And
Yeah,
then
like-
he goes on to this long rant about how he's a real wildcat, and your answers were only feral cats, and we're better than you, and I have special stripes and coloring that make me better. And I'm sitting here like, buddy, you want to keep your throne and keep her from stabbing you in the back in the middle of the night? Shut up.
She's a wuss. Like, I don't buy her being able to actually stab him in the back. She's more whiny than anything else.
She calls him my lord. Why? It's just so gross to me.
Rigu has done nothing to earn this command that he has, and so far, I see him not doing anything to prove that he deserves it.
I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't faced a mutiny already.
Frankly. Oh my god, yeah. Like, because we've had villains where they have, like, there are people under them that sometimes, you know, even if they're not the most effective sometimes, we still get the idea of why their crews follow them. Like, even though Clog made mistakes, his crew genuinely liked him, and so they followed him because he was a good leader to them.
Mm-hmm. And Clooney at one point was literally injured and on his sickbed, and none of his crew even thought about.
Yep, they were too scared.
Yeah.
Or Gulo, we established he was not the brightest of the bunch, but he was also the most terrifying villain so far so nobody wanted to cross him. We had that one old fox even say, like, if you run, he will find you and he will rip you to pieces. Whereas with Rigu, it's what? What are you gonna do? Complain more?
I mean, the closest vermin big bad we've had that comes to this kind of whiny and just enforcing them because I'm already the king is Daddy Ferret from Triss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he was literally being carried around on a palanquin. At least Rigu walks.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like he could walk because he's missing a leg.
Yeah, and like even like the 2 kids from that book from Triss were way better than these 2. Because you had I'm sorry, I'm blanking on their names at the moment.
Blad and Kurta.
Blad and Kurta, yeah. Like Blad, he was at least like fun at times. Like he was at least entertaining. Like he never came off as just an annoying, like, I want you out of the book. Like I actually kind of liked him a little bit. And Kurta at least she's just this cruel psychopath, you know? Like she was at least threatening. And we got a good resolution for what happened with her. Whereas with these 2, with Jifra and Petru, they could both die in a fire, and I'd be like, good, the book's better off without them.
You know what? I have a note later on in my notes. It struck me that if you combined Jifra and Petru's characters together, you basically get Wilf Smithers from Castaway the Flying Dutchman.
I
mean, I'm not wrong.
No.
Oh, oh my gosh.
And you know
So
what? He was a more entertaining character than either of these two because he had the other brother's like main character trait to play off of whatever the dominant trait of the scene is. So it's like aggression, but cowardice. Or
yeah.
cowardice plus I really want to stab somebody in the back.
Yes.
And we at least had the fun moment where Ben and oh god, what was the old like sailor that Ben befriended in it?
John Preston.
Whoa. There you go. I was
Yeah, like
the dude.
yeah, we at least had that fun moment where they just scared the hell out of him and he ran for his life and dove under his sheets and was so terrified to get out that he knocked the food over on his bed while hiding under the blankets and still didn't do anything.
Yes.
Yep.
But like Will Smithers was at least fun. Like
Yes.
we had those satisfying moments of Ben and the other two kids just messing with him something fierce.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of those good feeling like, oh, this guy's a bully and he's constantly getting his comeuppance.
Yes.
Because we
Whereas-
can all relate to what it was like to have that one bully that we hated from when we were kids, and we longed to see them get their comeuppance. And here we get to see the embodiment of what we remember our bully was like getting their comeuppance.
Yes. Oh man, I think 3 of the 4 bullies who gave me hell in the elementary school ended up getting arrested. So in a way, they got their comeuppance later.
I had one where by the time I was in high school, at one point, I actually just shoved him into a wall and he never messed with me again.
I don't know what happened to any of my elementary school bullies, but I did hear from my best friend that this really mean girl, tried to friend everybody on Facebook and literally could not remember making everyone's lives miserable. And it was like, no, we want nothing to do with you. You are a consummate jerk. And until you remember and apologize, you are not forgiven.
Anyway, we got off the rails.
Yep. So now we also have an interesting comment from Rigu where he mentions that wildcats were tame creatures who served stronger beasts. So cats that serve stronger masters, like, do we ever get any follow-up on this? Like, I'm actually kind of interested now, like, who did they follow? Maybe this is where the dogs came from.
Mm.
Yeah, like
But
feral cats
it's-
and wild cats.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, he's basically just saying to Caltag, like, you're terrible. Jifra's terrible like you. And Pichu has a little me in him, so I like him better. Caltag's like, whatever.
It's really kind of disgusting when you think about it, though, because it comes across very much as a master race ideology.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yep.
Rigu, how much more of a piece of garbage can you make yourself?
God, and it's like, and Rigu, what have you done lately?
I got my
get
face ripped off.
Yeah, besides that. So then we find out that, all right, Chab apparently, like, so Chab from this chapter apparently already served his time under the pier, which was supposed to be like a full day and a night or something. And then I guess time just went by really quickly. And so then he punishes him in Wolke, and it's like, I'm tying you up and your families under the pier. Yeah, somebody's gonna rescue them, because of course they will. I'm just at this point, I was like, these villains suck. Like, because we've had some solid antagonists lately. Like Rigu wishes he could be as scary as Gulo, or at least as fun as like Plug Firetail. Because Plug Firetail was just fun from start to finish. And we had like even Kurta, who in the like she got her comeuppance in the end, and that's what was good. Like she ended up taking herself out in a really well done sequence. But like throughout the book, we at least wanted, like, for me, I like villains where you want to see something bad happen to them because they're genuinely doing things bad to the heroes, or they're genuinely like horrible monsters. Like, one of the reasons why I like Badrang the most out of all the villains is because, like, he essentially dragged Martin's grandmother to her death, like worked her to death. He stole Martin's sword, with Luke's sword. He killed Rose. He did horrible things. Like he was even bad to like Clog, like eventually treated Clog like a slave. Like, and he was competent too. So it's like throughout the book, they tried different things against him, and he would constantly be on it. And so by the end of the book, it's like, I want to see how they triumph over this character. I want to see Martin finally get his revenge on him. Whereas with this group, I just want them all to die. I want a new group of villains. Like, let's just eject them out the airlock and let's get a new group in here, please. Bring Badge Red back.
I don't know, guys. I don't know what this book.
God.
I just hope I can get a magic sword this time.
Yeah, like, I really don't like the villains in this book.
I do like Lady Caltag only for the reason that the voice actor who plays her is excellent. And fun fact, she also plays Sister Snowdrop, and just seeing the difference between those two characters and what she can do is pretty amazing.
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, I've had instances where I'm like, where through like voice acting or just actors where I'll be like, I hate this character, but I love the voice actor's performance.
I mean, you could say that about basically any fictional character being portrayed by somebody else. I mean, there are so many movie villains that you can look at and it's just like, that actor is just killing it, and I despise them.
Yep.
Well, because I've had that with like characters you're supposed to like though, where I'm like, I hate this character, but I love the voice actor. Like Final Fantasy 13, the character Snow, terrible, terrible character for the majority of the game, but Troy Baker is awesome doing the voice and does a great job with his performance. So it's like I really enjoy listening to his performance, but god damn it, I hate this character.
Yes, and also the guy who plays Rigophilus is Paul Braithwaite, who played Rackety Tam in the last book. So it's just like the talent range of these actors is pretty great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So back to Redwall in the next chapter, and they have, at this point, I was like, they have a real library. Finally, the running gags of dusty storage and lost documents are at an end. I hope.
Not so much.
I hope. I was wrong.
I love this chapter art, but it makes old Quelt look like a rejected Dark Crystal puppet.
Right. Yeah, the artwork in this one, everybody looks like they're dying of starvation in this book. Everyone's like really skinny and everything. Like,
I mean, they just did have some crop ruins, so
There we go.
I mean, that would be a decent story to explore if what happens if Redwall had a catastrophic crop failure.
That's true. They've never been short on supplies before. Like
Not even after 1,000 hares drop by when they really should be out of all food.
I can remember one time they were short on supplies. It was in the totally canonical animated series, the first season.
I meant in the good stories.
All right.
So let's get back to this. Yes, our wars are back to, hey, let's figure this out. Because we do this every book.
Riddle.
Another riddle. And keep in mind not the poem that this mysterious otter person through Martin gave mentions High Rhulian already. Yeah. Keep that in mind. Because I wonder if it's going to be touched on again before the end of the book. He says in that obvious reviewer way to let you know he's being sarcastic.
I did like the gag of Quelt's fallen asleep, and he's like, no, I heard everything. I am literally just resting my eyes.
Quelt is delightfully sassy. Just like he will say whatever he wants, and he does not care.
Nope.
And then we find out the answer to the riddle was basically, Snowdrop will figure it out. Let's all go outside and play.
Yeah.
You know, riddle solving should be a Mossflower Olympic event, and the Ridwallers would always get a 10 out of 10.
So, yep. And then we're told that, like, oh, Grofgut and his crew, they probably drowned. Unfortunately, no, they did not. They are still in the story.
Ah, sorry! Oh, sorry. They're just, they're the lame crew.
Yeah,
Somehow
and-
hiding in a swamp underneath the surface. Ew.
Yep. And
I'm
so
okay.
then Grofgut's like, oh, we're gonna get him, especially that mouse that beated me. Like, I've got his name written in my head. And I'm like, no, dude.
No, you
First
don't.
of all, no way. You don't know how to write or spell.
And you don't
Okay.
know his name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be calling him that mouse.
Revenge!
God. No, it's more like revenge. Bah.
I'm gonna get revenge for being beat up by that mouse.
I don't know what's a late. You know what? I think Grofgut and Rigu need to have a contest of who's the lamer villain in this story.
Grofgut.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That
I don't know.
didn't take very long.
Well, you haven't read the entire story yet, so
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm sorry there ever I'm gonna have my vengeance. Boss, no one believes that. Shut up.
boss, spell vengeance. V. Jensen. Shut up!
Is it IDIOT?
Yep, that's it. That just reminds me of in the new Beauty and the Beast. I generally not a huge fan of it, but in the Gaston song, like he's spelling it at the end. He's like, and that's spelled GAST. I believe there's another T.
It's like Homer. I am so smart. SMRT. I mean SMART.
Yeah.
So yes. Unfortunately, we have to go on a downturn because we got otter families we're saving. We do find Big Gale Deep has as a ship with a terrible name.
The Rusty Nail. Why just call
Really?
it the Tetanus Express?
I really like Colin and Diderot, maybe one of my most favorite couples in a while. They're so fun.
I do like them.
It's like
them.
It's like they're like the Log and Honeysuckle from Legend of Luke if they actually liked each other. Like Diderot gives him a hard time, but she clearly loves him.
Oh God. So. Oh God. What's it called? I do
have one question here, which the book does not answer.
Mm-hmm.
We see that the Otter clans can readily they're still slaves to free, so there'll be more. Presumably, there will be more numbers later, but they can readily have available around 50 able warriors. I'm not talking like let's put a ladle in people's hands and throw them at the enemy. No, like 50 warriors that are pretty decent here, but it's not clear how many numbers the Wildcats have in their army, whether that's actual cats or a related room. I think it's just cats.
Yeah,
It is just cats. There's the one by Martin, and that's it.
But we're not told. But it's basically we're like these 50 isn't enough to take the fortress down. Fair enough. Where it's not till like the very end of the book, and we'll cover it when they touch it, that clearly the Wildcats have more than 50 because they leave 40 behind for defense. But at this point, all we know is that the Otters have 50, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a decent number. Why aren't they attacking?
Well, they do mention at one point that they don't exactly have readily available weapons either. Like there's their javelins, which are basically just sharpened sticks, and they said blades were very hard to come by as well.
And I think they're also worried about if they mount any kind of prolonged attack that they'll just start going after the slaves that they have and just start killing them.
Yeah.
The one other thing I do want to point out is they have officers called score cats, and score being 20, so I assume a score cat is in charge of 20
score of
cats
cats.
underneath him. And
Mhm.
I'm aware of at least a couple, not only from this book, but later on in the story. So if they can leave 40 behind, that's probably going to be maybe 20 to 30% of their army. So let's say somewhere between 150 and 200 cats total. Just spitballing.
That would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we've seen that the wildcats, and even though they're feral cats, whatever, we've seen that the cats in this series are bigger and stronger and tougher than the usual crews. So it's like basically think 200 Sarminas.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
that would be fun.
That's one crazy number.
So now we're gonna pit 200 Martins against 200 Sarminas. Let's watch.
Is that an option in Realistic Battle Simulator?
Should be.
I was gonna make a Zergrush joke, but that works too.
So yeah, the otters are like, well, some of our these guys are tied up underneath the pier there. We otter rescue them.
Yeah, their plan is basically distraction and then get the prisoners out, especially the kids and wives of these two guys. So
It feels very much like something you see in Mossflower or Bellmaker.
Yeah, like we've seen this kind of shtick before.
yes,
or
and
heck,
they also
it's kind of like in Muriel Redwall, where the hares distract the villains and then they make off with a couple of the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we'll see, but they're also going to try to set fire to the fortress. Long story. I want to cover that when we get there.
Yeah.
So Rigu's basically the entire Wildcat ruling family goes down to. Almost, I'm a little ahead of myself yet.
Yeah. So Rigu decides that because he's sick and tired of his stupid sons being stupid and annoying, which, gee, I wonder where they got that from. He talks to one of the score cats, Groodle, which, great. Okay, another stupid name I'll forget pretty shortly.
And there's Grottle filing a copyright infringement.
Yeah. We're recycling stupid names. Are we getting another Fraggle Rock?
So basically, yeah, Rigu's like at this point he tells Groodle, who's in charge of basically score cats and guard cats. It's like, hey, my two idiot sons, you're enlisting them, train them, and keep them in line like you would anybody else. Should I serve? Give them any extra things because they're technically the princes of this island? No, don't.
Yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? Like that's the first sensible thing he's done. I'm surprised he hasn't already had his kids trained as soldiers, but this is smart.
Agreed. Like for at least with Farago and Klitsch learned how to fight. Like he was already a competent fighter and, wanted to lead and actually had good plans and everything. Like he was a competent villain.
Oh, he clearly learned it from his dad's knee. At his dad's
Yeah.
knee, yeah.
So yeah, so they get marched off and Jifra's just Captain Whiny, and then Petru's like, tonight, you.
Well, he's basically his son's like, well, I'm gonna learn and I'll get you back for this, Dad. You're gonna grow old, and I'm like, and he's like, if you had any, Rico had any senses, like, you idiot, I'm trying to make you someone who can rule.
Trying to turn you from dumb cat and wussy cat into literally anything else.
And they're mentioning, like, what if his wife asks? What if your wife asks where to see them? And she's like, I'll deal with her. She's gonna have to get used to this. Is basically what he's gonna say. And
that dumb Prince Squirrel kid from the last book was more impressive than these two.
So Atruna also is like, you were. Oh, excuse me. Rigu's like, yeah, the one who's threatening violence against me. Yeah, he's gonna be coming to Adria's peace one day. And Atruna's like, yeah, you were kind of like the same way. He's like, yeah, I know. That's what troubles me.
Yeah, and so then within one chapter, the distraction attack happens. the otter captives are rescued, and so Rigu literally is just completely caught off his game here. This is also why I don't think he's a good villain. Is like,
Oh no.
back in Martin the Warrior, whenever anything like attacked Marshank, Badgering was on it, and he was right there on the front lines, being more effective than like some of his underlings and stuff. He had that great moment where they were under attack, and he's like, "Why are you panicking? Look, we have the high ground here. We have the advantage." Grabbed someone's spear, threw it, and killed someone. Said, "See, look, they died just like we do. Now get in line."
And it's
Like,
one thing if it'd be one thing if Rigu wanted to delegate this, but you need people who are competent and are going to work, and he doesn't have either.
No, like his underlings, we don't even know like who his don't know much
Officers.
about his generals or anything in this. And so when they get under attack, literally it's just mass panic running in random directions, trying to figure out what to do. And so meanwhile, Dumb Cat and Wussy Cat go out in a boat. The boat overturns because they're useless.
Well, the otters actually did that, but
Oh,
Yeah.
this is true, but
they can't
I don't know.
swim.
Well, I
No.
think their own stupidity flipped the boat over.
Well, there's that.
So I have a question here. Apparently, it's not just the princes here who hate water; it's every cat. And
Yeah.
one, that doesn't make much sense if you're training soldiers on an island, but maybe they're not training them very well. But two, here's the thing about actual cats: they have that instinctual swimming reflex, like most mammals do. They just don't like water. They don't fear it. They just don't want to have to engage in it if they don't have to, unless you're a freaking tiger. They're the only
Yeah.
cat
Or-
species.
Or if the cat has been normalized from kittenhood to be okay with water, in which case, yeah, they're totally okay with it. In fact, they might really like it.
Like this feels more like just a generalization now. But it's like the only wildcat villain we've had so far that was legitimately afraid of water was Sarmina, and it was an important plot point. And it, like, we don't know why she was, but it worked for the story. It was well explained. It was well done.
And
We're-
it plays off a species stereotype. We get it, but her
Yeah.
brother never expressed the same fear.
Exactly. So it was like a specific character trait just for her.
I wonder if Jake's never grew up with cats because he seems to understand dogs very well. So maybe he just doesn't understand cats as much. Sort of like me. I like cats, but I'm allergic, so I've never been around them, so I don't really understand how they work.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
I
though-
also have a general explanation for this. The villains suck.
Well, yes. Sorry, can you guys hear the very loud people right outside my door?
We can, but don't worry
No.
about it.
Okay.
I mean,
They're very loud.
some of it anyway. It's not a big deal.
So-
I mean, how many train horns did we sever in my last place?
How many times has Bella driven by on her motorcycle? Okay.
Yeah.
People are screaming, and then Fawn starts whining because she thinks they want to play, and she can't play with them, and then she's very upset. I'm like, holy crap, I'm doing a podcast. People
So yeah, the distraction otters also try to set fire to the wooden fortress, but it's basically too thick to truly burn, and the cats actually show sense in putting it out pretty quick.
It's a
Yeah.
miracle.
But I thought, like, one of my things, like, okay, you have a wooden fortress, why didn't you do this before? But there's two reasons. A, there could be slaves inside that fortress, and you're basically sentencing them to death that way. Or B, this is still it's an ancient otter fort. Maybe they'd like to keep it when they inevitably take it back from the cats. So
So then we get Pichu gets back up on the boat, and Jifra's like, "Save me!" And I'd make like the Lion King reference, but
Oh.
these two
I
are
was gonna say
no.
that.
dang it.
Yeah.
they're not even worth it though. Like they're too pathetic. They're not fit to lick Scar's boots. Okay, so instead of like the classic, long live the king, and like clashing his claws into Jifra's hands. No, Pichu just grabs an oar and beats him over the head twice, and then he drowns. Like,
So it's
that was
basically except that Star Trek 3 is actually good. That I have had enough of you.
yes. Actually, this is more like that scene in Star Trek Nemesis where he doesn't say anything, just sort of kicks him in the face.
Although I will say for the voice actor, he does a very good job of kind of being sinister. Like when he's like, "Has anyone seen my poor brother?" It was like a little chilling. I was like, "Ooh, okay."
That's fair.
It's very much a. I'm pretending to be innocent. What is going on? I'm traumatized. And it's like, dude, you are not traumatized. Cut it out.
Yeah.
No one
He's
believes you, boss.
traumatized.
Uh,
No one believes you, boss. So, so yes, we now have we go back to the Abbey where we have 2 birds recovering in the infirmary. And but at the point, these birds aren't, while they'll tolerate to each other, they also love to snipe at each other, I've noticed.
I was done with this part of the book. I don't like this whole chapter.
Chapter 9 doesn't really give us much.
No.
Other than...
We get 2 pages, 2 whole friggin' pages of the, like, can we talk to the birds? No. Can we talk to the birds? No. And it's like, this is the part where I said, why doesn't Tyria just say, Martin gave me a message, we need their help? Literally everybody in this franchise complies whenever the phrase Martin said it is uttered. Proven completely right a little bit later in the chapter, because it's like they say, well, Martin said that Tyria, this inexperienced otter who got freaked out when she accidentally killed 1 rat, will be going alone. So yeah.
And again, we're back to the Harry Potter logic.
Yeah. It's like the one point where it would have come in handy, they don't use it, and instead they waste time. Then the abbess shows up with a kid, and we have to deal with that for a whole chapter. And then we get more of the Yoda Goose's backwards talk, which at this point I'm already tired of. Like, it was funny at first, now I'm done with it.
I think it does show a little bit of world building in that we get a softer moment from the infirmary keeper. We get the abbess sort of like maneuvering social situations, being like, let her come in and talk to the birds, and just showing sort of what she's like. And yeah, I mean, it's fluff a little bit, but I mean, I didn't mind it.
I'm not saying it's bad fluff, but it is fluff.
Yeah.
Especially when we're told Adibin basically stuck his hand in an oven and has to be healed.
I thought that was cute, though.
It is cute.
I've sat on chairs with less padding than this.
The other thing I want to point out here is one thing that a particular river that has not been mentioned in books a long time. We finally have mention of the River Moss.
Yeah.
And
it's been a long time.
Considering it doesn't even show up on some of the previous books' maps, it was honestly a question of, okay, did their damming it with the wood ship, did that cause it to divert its flow? Did it cause it to dry up? Where is this? And suddenly, okay, it's back.
Yeah, it was such a big part of Moss Flower, and then it's like never mentioned again.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and we start getting somewhere, and then there's more wasting time with like another page-long song.
And we also Salamander Strawn is name dropped, kind of. The goose mentions, oh yeah, the Striped Dog and Hare Mountain. Oh yeah, we know what that is. Hey, do you think they would have a ship for us to use? No, they don't have a navy.
Definitely not.
Yeah. It's like, how are we going to cross a sea? Maybe we should look into previous adventures where Red Walrus had to go across seas to do one thing or another.
Let's not do what they did in Pearls of Lutra.
Yeah, that was yeah, no.
Let's not slam into icebergs.
Let's not Titanic ourselves.
Yeah.
Nearby. Anyway.
Wherever you
Oh,
are. So
you.
yeah, and then they say like, oh, we should all go with Tyria, and they're like, no, it's too dangerous for your whole group to go. So let's just send this one inexperienced otter. This sounds like a good idea.
Right. Hey guys, what was the last time when we sent just 2 maids because Martin told us to send us the last time? How far did they make it again?
Literally in the last book.
Yep.
This is just 1. It's not even 2.
Wait for book 2. That's all I gotta say. They do find a solution.
How far
for
do they
this.
make it? Oh yeah, just the ditch outside Redwall.
They made like 10 feet. At least they do say that the Osprey Pike Talon, I can't remember his first name and I don't care,
Champion.
is going with her. So it's like, okay, at least she has a fearsome bird going with her. So we've got that much. Better than nothing. So
we also get the goose and Osprey try to fight, and then they're like, "Hey, cut it out." At least they do. It's literally a Cosgrove. Cut it out.
Say Cosgrove drives in and tells him cut it out and then drives away. Yeah, chapter 10
begins with a pretty haunting scene because Mama Wildcat is mourning her dead son.
Haunting,
Yeah.
I say annoying. I don't care. Stupid Jeepers dead. Good. Let's get. And then we get the line where because what's his face? Rigu is like, "What's going on?" And he's being very like just quiet about it. And Caltag, whatever the heck her stupid name is, she's like, she says, "Will you slay me and your other son so you can rule alone?" And I immediately was like, "Do it, do it, do it."
No, because then we'd just be stuck with him, and he's not my favorite. I like Caltag better.
He's less annoying than the rest of it. He's an incompetent moron, but at least he's less annoying than the rest of them.
Here's the thing, though. If Caltech had any sense, and we've established repeatedly he does not, he would have showed empathy to his wife, the fact that they both just lost a son, and tried to actually comfort her. At best, he can say is, he does say, "I do not think I agree for my son," but then he immediately turns it on her that this is suddenly her fault because
at least he wrong.
At least he was trying to make them into soldiers. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying he could have done this a lot better because literally when she leaves with her other son, her son gives the most obvious tell that this is completely his doing.
Mm-hmm. Because yes, Petru, you are very convincing in your dramatic account of what happened. Totally believable.
And then he looks into his dad and gives a satisfied smirk. And Dad, at that point, would have been like, "Hey,
wait a minute."
Or maybe he's just like, "Okay, well, I won't have to hear the two brothers fighting anymore."
Thank God. And Rigu's like, "The otters, they made fools of us. That was not hard." God, like, you made fools of yourselves. So, yeah, Jifra's dead. Nothing of value was lost. The book is less annoying for him being gone. Petru, Caltag, Rigu, all 3 of you, please follow him. Jump in the water.
Okay, then.
All right.
So we also get the otters basically, I mean, not that they didn't already commit to doing this long term, but they basically start a battle plan. Like they have a fallback cave that they're going to reinforce, bring everybody to, so they have basically families in one spot, so they can't be captured and used against people. They're going to send spies into Rigu's slave pens to pass intel, and they're basically working on a long-term plan to free slaves.
Yep.
It's
I like how the Shellhound song begins with a good "Howroo."
Yeah.
Quiet, Nixon.
Yep. And so we also get a good reason to why they don't just leave, because it's a long journey, obviously, and they don't have any like big ships to carry everybody. Mm-hmm. As they're going to be having to transport not just like the warriors, but they have kids, slaves that are obviously going to be a lot weakened, and elders. So it's like, at least we have a reason for them not just leaving and then coming back with like a bigger force.
Mm-hmm.
So then Rigu, they refer to him as a conqueror, which
I don't see evidence of that.
Yeah, he was born into power. He can't even conquer his own family. And so then he's complaining that, like, oh, they disrupted us, they made fools, blah, 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 blah. Maybe if you had spent more time trying to track down the rebel otters instead of having your army pointlessly slaughter birds, maybe you would have gotten somewhere.
I agree. However, his little speech that he gives is very effective in the audiobook just because the voice actor is so good.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it also feels like something that we've heard before from, like a little bit of Dan McWarfang crossed with Gulo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
And to Jeremy's point of why we think Rigu was born into power instead of actually earned it, his wife at one point comes out and clearly we've reached the Ergen and Silvermord stage of this relationship where they're working more against each other than their common enemies. But she basically is like, no, I'm going to, and she outright says, I'm going to arrange defense of this place under my surviving son as commander. And this is why I say Rigu has no proper military experience, because even him, he admits in the moment, oh, yeah, I probably should think about defense, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
He didn't even consider this.
Yeah. Like, this was the point where I was just like, he forgot to station people to guard the fortress while they hunt the rebels. He's the worst big bad. Like, even when Gabul was completely insane, he was still better than this. Rigu is incompetent. He's an idiot. Has an annoying family. Like, Pete, you mentioned Silvermord. Silvermord was at least way more scary and threatening and cruel than Kaltag is. Like, I don't buy any competence from her whatsoever. And so far, the biggest event we've seen with Rigu is he got half of his stupid face ripped off because he was an idiot. Like, Sister May was more threatening than this guy.
I kind of see Kaltag as sort of the olden days sort of society wife. Like, she was brought up to just have the children and keep the household and, be pampered and taken care of.
She's a socialite.
Yeah.
It's clearly a political marriage. That's always been clear here. But I mean, and it's clearly he's already losing the political battle. That suddenly his wife looks more competent than he is,
which doesn't take that much.
I'm aware. But she also calls him actively killing out a random trooper.
Yep.
And don't get me. I'm not saying it's good logic, but there is logic to him doing this. He's basically scaring the rank and file back in the line, but at the same time, this is how mutinies start. If the regular rank and file think you will kill them for speaking truth, yeah, you're going to start fueling your own mutiny in time.
And it's not like they're able to go and get replacement troops. Like, this isn't like we've had villains do that because they were in areas where they could. Like, Clooney's first order of business was, let's bolster our ranks. And to be honest, Clooney never executed or just flat out killed any of his soldiers. Like, if anything, they got themselves killed. The only people he had executed were Chickenhound and Sela, and they were not part of his forces, and they were actively betraying and working against him, so he had every right to kill them. But like Red Tooth and Cheese Thief, they got their own dumb selves killed. But even like, again, going back to Badgerang, he also never killed anyone, and he kept Clog around just to humiliate him. So yeah, this is like, obviously Ungat Trun killed a couple of his own forces. He snapped their necks and threw them out a window, but he was also actively recruiting new people as well. And
Gulo just was Gulo.
Yeah, Gulo was just insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, like or like Farago killed 2 of his own troops because they were actively trying to kill him, and so you don't want them.
And he had planned to kill deserters had they not died in the field anyway.
Exactly. So it's like they usually have, and again, they would have had access to maybe more troops at some point because of where they were located. With this one, Rigu's just an idiot. He just sucks. I got nothing else to say. He just sucks. So,
Back
yeah.
at the Abbey, there we finally find the source of the overall book title, and Snowdrop found a random book that was made by
Geminia.
Jiminia, yep.
Geminia, and apparently she was the master riddle maker in all of Redwall, and she was this most witty character, and la da da, and we don't even know what time frame she was under, and we never had a book with her. So
we will
I guess
find that out.
I immediately hate her. Immediately hate her. This was the point where I just started getting really angry with the book, because it's just like they flat out say like it's a Geminia tome or whatever, and they're like, how could you have not heard of this? And they waste time asking the characters like, how could you not know who this is? Meanwhile, the readers don't know who this is because she hasn't been in any of the stories. Like, get to the humming point. And they start telling all this history about this character that we don't care about because they're long dead. At least Fairmold had just recently passed on, and it was important to the backstory because she had helped care for the guy that tried to escape Ublaz and was, not completely right in the head. Fairmold at least had an interesting backstory and had like connections with the Abbey. This one, I don't care who she is. Stop wasting time. Because they now have a point where they're like, we should go outside to discuss this. They go outside, they talk about this whole history, and they go, that's all the information we have. Let's go back inside.
Can you tell Jeremy's getting frustrated with this?
I got so annoyed, I didn't even care about the food descriptions.
Dang.
That's how annoyed I got. Like, if it weren't for padding, this first book would be 20 pages.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I guess I'm a little bit more forgiving because I figured, okay, they've got to have, if he's setting this up, this is Chekhov's book. It's going to have to go somewhere or it's really just going to be done.
There's a connection with Jiminia. Like, she has more of a connection to the whole story.
But I won't disagree with you that this is way overcomplicated. And I get that Drakes likes to write riddle poems, but at this point, just draw a map.
Yeah.
Draw a map.
Because then we get another one, like literally just repeating stuff from Pearls of Lutra, where they have the anagram where they have to like rearrange the letters. And at least in Pearls of Lutra, they kind of rapid fired through a couple of like that doesn't make sense. And like it felt like they were actively trying to figure it out. And when they did, we had this good moment of like, oh, they figured it out. In this one, first of all, the first answer they give is Eels Rue fling her tor, which that doesn't even mean anything.
I think that was just there for comedic relief, but you know.
And then we find out Quilt knew the answer the entire time. Like, we literally wasted time then. Why didn't you just say something?
Man, am I going to have to edit that audio level down?
Oh my god. I'm sorry. I got so angry. This was the point also, because they're like, what's this next part? And it was like a diamond of letters. And I was just said, where's an Itagal when you need one?
I think we're supposed to have like see Quelt as sort of the condescending elder who, even though he has stuff figured out, he doesn't understand that this is an urgent situation and he's trying to give people a chance to work it out on their own, not understanding that, this is needed like immediately. And he's like, well, I'll just let them figure it out because I like to watch people figure things out.
Yeah. And like
at one point the abbess is just like, hey, cut it out.
Tell us.
Yeah.
It's possible it's more of a, well, I'm getting old and I'm certainly not going to be around forever to figure things out for you. So you need to learn how to do it because I'm not long for this world.
No, but it's like going back to Pearls of Lutra, like we had one singular moment where something like this happened where Cracklin and Picknam, when they first joined, when they first started helping out, were like, we figured it out. And that's when Tansy has her moment of like, if you don't tell me, I'm going to throw this mud on you or something, like this porridge on you or something.
Warp nettle soup.
That was it. The nettle. I'll make you eat the nettle soup. and they immediately help, and they never do that again because they're young and they quickly understand the importance of having to help. And they also were not being insufferable. Unlike Guri or Geary or whatever his stupid name is, where he figures out the next clue and then refuses to tell anyone. I want to punch him.
Or if we go back to Triss, when we have one character figuring out the alphabet and we have to wait for a book change to hear the reveal, that's not so bad because at least she shows she's actually active and interested in helping people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the closest thing I can come to this is young Arvin, when he's deliberately holding information back and they have to bribe him. But you can at least say he's a kid.
He was a toddler. Yeah, like
at
that
the same
was...
time, all the way back in Redwall, when Matthias and Methuselah were solving the riddle, they were also keeping information from each other and mocking each other while they were doing it. Like, I know something you don't know.
I can at least accept that that's basically a father-son relationship.
Yeah, like that. At least I liked the relationship between them, and they also only did that like once, and they were just like quickly like, okay, because Matthias did it, and also he was a young novice, and the Methuselah did it because he's like, look, I'm making, it's not fun when someone does that, right? Here, Guri, who's one of Tyria's close friends, so you'd think he'd want to help her, is like, no, I shan't tell you. And then Skipper just gets pissed, like, I'm going to beat you up. And then I love the Abbess is like, no, I will not let you do that because I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I love this Abbess. I really do.
I did like that.
She started off generic, but between this and what happens in the next chapter, yeah,
I like her.
Yep.
I do like Lycian.
Yeah, it's the attack of the angry Abbess against her antagonistic assistant. Alarming.
Yep. Good. And
nice alliteration.
And then it mentions that somebody's an exceedingly aggravating creature, and I can't remember who it was. I just wrote, oh, so she's the personification of this chapter. Oh, God.
Moreover, we do find that the clue that they've been spending the whole word diamond and the one that was being held back is basically it's High Queen Rhulian, so something we already knew.
Exactly. It does all that time wasted and nothing was accomplished. We knew this. It was part of the stupid riddle they were given by Martin in the first place.
It's basically just confirming Martin and his mysterious otter buddy knew exactly what they were talking about. So, okay.
Cut this chapter out of the book and it would flow better.
Yes, Jeremy, I understand you're upset.
outside of Lycian's fun little moment. I'm fine with that.
So chapter 12 begins with the Water Rats game, and to quote Christopher Walken in Batman Returns, yawn.
Back to the Moron clan. I in my notes just wrote, oh God, we're back to the Moron clan. Grofguts, not Rigus, because sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
I mean, I can't even make like a good we're Badger exterminators or Three Stooges here, because these guys just don't have anything that's at least entertaining about them.
Like Badgered's group at least had there were individual personalities amongst them. We had, oh God, I'm blank. Was it Flinky? Flinky. Yeah. He was entertaining and fun. Had his little ditties. He was clever. There was charm to Badred's group. This is just duh. And then because we even have a moment where they're arguing over the facts of a lie. Well, I saw the eagle. No, I thought it was a seagull. There was never a seagull in this book to begin with.
The only thing I see that made me laugh is basically pie is the way to a water rat's heart.
Yes.
I'm sorry laughing at that.
I have to ask, cake or pie, what's your favorite?
Oh, pie.
I can't I have both?
But
you're allowed to have both, but if you could only pick one.
If you're going to make me absolutely choose cheesecake.
I'd probably go with pie because there's so many good different varieties that I like. So I like lemon meringue and apple.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the traditional flour butter pie crust. I prefer a graham cracker or a chocolate cookie crust. But all types of cake I pretty much like. I like the cake and frosting combination.
Yeah.
So I go with
I'm
cake.
more of a cake person than a pie person, but if you're letting me pick a type of pie, chocolate cream pie all the way.
Peanut butter pie.
It's funny you
Boston cream
mentioned
pie is my favorite.
Mm.
It's funny you mention that because the ex-girlfriend I did that inspired our breakup inspired this podcast. Her thing was red velvet, and when we broke up, I had a thing of red velvet in my pantry that I didn't use for a few months afterwards. And I had read on that mystical place of the internet that is always right and never wrong that you should try putting cake mix in a waffle iron.
Oh.
It did cradle red velvet waffle. It was just so rich I couldn't finish it.
Oh boy.
Yum.
And now that I've made you all hungry, my evil plan can progress.
So
No.
yeah, they have a comment about Grofgut. It says he was not good at speech making, and I was like, what is he good at?
Getting his tail chopped off. Oh wait, spoilers.
Yeah.
And now
At this point, because we spend all this time with them sneaking up to the wall, like we can't be spotted. They were spotted immediately. Where's Lana Bowstripe? Just get 7 arrows, maybe less if they can stand in a row, and we can do a contest of how many can one arrow go through.
that's more of a Krieger thing, but noted.
Yeah. And then Skipper's like, we need to kill them. And I like this moment where I was like, I'm with Skipper. Then we get a good moment with Abbess Lycian where she's like, no, we will not be killing them. And like, absolutely not. We will drive them away, but that's it. And then Skipper grabs her and pulls her to the side because the sword almost cleaved her head in half. And she just goes, kill them all!
This is why I like this Abbess.
Life. Search and destroy! I just
No, what actually set her off was they were snickering about cooking the cook in his own oven, and she's like, "Oh no, you did not just say that about my creatures."
I was just like, what reading this part just made me think of Hellsing Ultimate, because there's like a scene in it where the Integra's like all horrified that Alucard has killed an entire SWAT team, and then he tells her like I know the rest of the police are working with our enemies. Just you need to give the order, and she's like all iffy at first, and then just goes, "Your orders haven't changed. Search and destroy them all." And in the next episode, he's just like, "So, did you enjoy declaring war?" It's like, "So, Lycian, did you enjoy declaring war?"
Well, it's not even that. It's not only does she go for violence, which Mortimer is certainly clucking his tongue in the after, like, well. But it's how she declared it. Basically, the Vermin's whole plan was to throw a sword up onto the battlements and use that as a de facto grappling hook. Yes, Skipper pulled her out of their way, and then we heard their snickering about what they're going to do to people as one of their comrades climbed up. So she literally takes a boiling hot teapot and smacks them with it, spilling hot tea over everybody and the teapot over one of their heads.
Yep. And they all fall down. And so yeah, we get also more stupid names, Fleddy and Obler. But yeah, so then all the vermin run away, and all of a sudden we see that Grofgut lost his tail, which Plugfire Tails was way more heartbreaking.
Yes.
Well, we actually liked him, so
Exactly. And we find out with this dummy, it was his own sword.
Yeah, Grofgut really got it in the end, but at least he lived to tell the tale.
I knew that's where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was predictable. I admit it. I had to make the joke. I could not resist.
Nor
Yep.
should you.
And then so then Tyria, while all this insanity is going on, dreams more and is told this bizarre riddle that and then she wakes up and it said she knew exactly what to do. Okay, I'm glad you do, because I don't know what the heck had just happened.
This riddle is odd, to be certain. I mean, it doesn't tell us that much more than we already don't know. So, but it's basically Martin and his otter buddy are like, "Hey, what are you still doing at Redwall? Get going."
Yeah.
And they also have a
Something
new...
weird I want to point out too.
Mm-hmm.
In the audiobook, for once, Martin wasn't voiced by Mark Jakes.
Yeah.
And it
Oh.
sounds very weird and disconcerting.
There's been a couple of
maybe
them.
it's Matthias who's tapping for him.
Yeah. Well,
Except
no,
Mark
Matthias
Jakes
was
also voiced
yeah.
Matthias.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. So I don't know.
Matameo, maybe?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's strange.
So we also get a new term in here too, moss guard, instead of like moss flower.
I think that's I don't know if I should give that away. Nope,
Okay.
I'm not going to.
So that's something we'll find out in the next
Yep.
later on. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I'm sure it's not something as stupid as just as a turtle ends up being this MacGuffin that two brothers are going to fight over.
I
The
like
otter
the
and his
turtle.
wife.
I know. That was actually pretty clever. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
Where is the walking stone?
the window viper.
Ah!
Yep.
So
So
yeah, that takes us to the end of book one.
yeah, look.
Oh,
So
okay. I just saw book two's art, but I cannot spoil it. We will deal with that.
Oh yeah. Um. So yeah, when this was the last book for a while, this was the last book I had read, and I didn't finish it at first. Um, looking back at and I couldn't remember why, like before we started. Now I'm kind of seeing why, because I do not like this section of the book.
I couldn't have tell.
Yeah, I really don't. Like, the villains are terrible. Most, like, we got introduced to way too many protagonist characters, half of which I don't remember the names of, some of which I just don't like. I'm fine with I like Tyria so far. I like Abbess Lycian. Um and I do remember that it gets better after this, but this for me makes a really bad first impression.
Honestly, I think this first part is a little rough. Frankly, we're not really given good villains other than mass slavery. To hate the villains, are really they're almost not even engaging, to be frank. And the one I even felt the closest thing was maybe the mom, and that's because she's literally losing a son, and that was traumatic to most every parent. But
Also the son was G for us, so better off without him.
Well, probably not according to the parents, but
But overall, this isn't. It's not a great start, but it's not a bad start either.
We have had books with rougher starts than this one, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at Outcast of Redwall.
I don't know. Well, I liked book one of Outcast. My main problem with book one of Outcast of Redwall is it had nothing to do with the title of the book. Like, I at least enjoyed, like with Outcast, I enjoyed Sunflash's story. Like, I still stand by that the book should have just been called Sunflash the Mace. So, like, I enjoyed his story, and I enjoyed the story that told, like, where you got to meet like the two families and everything, and Scarlath was really enjoyable. Swart was an interesting villain. So it's like Outcast had its problems for sure, but this one, at least so far, like, we've never had villains this bad before.
Yeah, I just generally enjoy the audiobooks. So I just can't, I don't remember, and even like going through it this time, I didn't mind it as much as I mind the beginning of Rogue Crew, which is just not my favorite. But I would like to shout out Ketty Sutton, who plays Tyria, and Liam Tobin, who plays Letho Shellhound, because they were great, and I hadn't mentioned them yet, so shout out to those two. But yeah, I don't know. I really like the music and the narration and the voice acting, and maybe it helps me. Maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed this as much if I just read the text, but I I'm enjoying this reread again so far.
So I already soapboxed earlier, so I'm not going to soapbox now. But there was a lot of imagery and allegory in here that was very uncomfortable. And not necessarily in a bad way, but definitely in one of those, I didn't remember this from when I was a child.
Yeah.
So, I can't give a positive or a negative to this until we at least get through the second book, maybe even the third book, before I can really give this is how I feel, because there's a lot of elements here I remember, but I don't quite remember hitting me the same way. So I need more time to process. So at this point, I'll simply say, I know there are some very epic moments coming up, and I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah.
But as for everything else, I'll hold off on any judgment until later.
Yeah. The positives I remember from this book are from later on in it, because I do remember liking stuff in it once I got further in. So I can't remember if they were in book 2 or 3, but I do remember liking stuff later on.
Jeremy, was this the last book you read before you quit the series?
Yeah, this was the one that I quit on.
But
So
then you did read Doom White.
No, so this is how it went. So I started reading this when it came out originally, and then quit. And then 9 years later, 2014, is when I actually finally was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to it. And I remember at points I was like, just power on through it, and I finished it. And I remember when I finished the book originally, I had a good impression of it. I liked where it went. I did not like it as much as some of the prior books, but I did like it. I then at that point I was like, okay, I will check in another one, check out the next ones. And so then I didn't realize that Eulalia came out. It was the one after this one, so I read Doom White instead, and yeah, Doom White happened, and then that's it. And then shortly, I think it was at that point I hadn't decided like which ones I was going to read, or maybe I couldn't find them in a store and I didn't feel like ordering them at the time. And then Pete said we were going to do, thinking of doing the podcast. And so when we started doing the podcast, I decided I'll wait to read Eulalia, Sable Queen, and Rogue Crew for first time for the podcast. So those are the only 3 that I have not read. But yes, this was the one where I don't even think I finished book 1 of it, and I kind of stopped.
Okay. I mean, as I've mentioned on podcasts before, the last one I really was Tagarong, and that was more because as we've established, the Itagal thing was like, no. That was where I was like, that was where I was done. So
you're about to have a Fitagal if it happens again?
Oh, no.
And he's going to Hitagal you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben Mathias. I'm out of here. Bye!
Da, 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 da. Oh, yeah. Well, so
while
that's it.
he tells you where you can find us, I'm looking us up on iTunes.
Cool. Yep. So you can find us on recorderonthewall.com. We are on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Play, or is it YouTube? I don't know. Stop changing your names. We're on Spotify. We are also featured on the official Redwall forums and on the R Eulalia subreddit. We have our own Twitter account at ROTWpod. And we also have an email address, rotwpod@gmail.com.
And to answer the question, no, we don't have any new reviews.
But we're still perfect.
Yeah.
Got 5 stars. Woo-hoo.
Flawless victory. Oh, so that's it this time. Next time, we will be tackling book 2 of Rhulian, The Fool of the Sea.
Hooray.
So until next time, I'm Jeremy.
I'm Pete.
I'm Katie.
And where'd Matthias go?